Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Oh my goodness, I'm so ready.
She's always so ready, and I have to pump myself up because today is your day to know your role.
To know your role.
And my role has been as an introvert.
And mine, can you guess? An extrovert.
Yeah, which is why we get along so well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Extroverts like to talk.
No.
They really do.
They love
Generally
to talk.
speaking, they kind of like to hear the sound of their own voice. And it's nice to have somebody here who's just going to listen.
Although I don't just listen.
No, but you do listen well.
But I do listen.
More than I do. We were joking about how when we go to parties and stuff, because we're therapists, people will be like, oh, are you psychoanalyzing me? And we're like, are you paying me for that?
Yeah, seriously. I got nothing else going on here. I'm just going to analyze you for free.
So today our episode is about introverts and extroverts and birth order and all the different roles that we have in our lives. And
yes.
Once you actually know your role, once you're aware of your role, then you can make some choices and changes about that.
And it's nice to know yourself a little bit. It's nice to finally understand why certain things are the way that they are, and also to decide if you want to change them. You know, for me, I'm an introvert, so I need my alone time. I need time to rejuvenate. And we were actually going to talk a little bit about what the difference between introvert and extrovert is. So introverts like to... they like to be around people sometimes, but it's exhausting to them. So then they need their time alone to rejuvenate and rekindle and just become themselves again. Whereas extroverts actually recharge by being around other people.
Right.
Right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so for extroverts, the kind of the trap for the extrovert is when an extrovert is alone for too long, they can start feeling like something's wrong. They get really lonely, they get really uneasy, and they feel isolated. Mm-hmm. And so for extroverts, it's important to be kind of connecting in with other people regularly. When I had my first baby, my aunt suggested that I was getting kind of stir crazy or cabin fever or whatever, and I couldn't be at home alone with this baby all day by myself. It was too much. And so she suggested that I actually go to the mall and just be around groups of people. And I found that so good for me. And it was just, I'm at the mall. I'm not really interacting with anybody. I'm not talking to anybody, but I'm kind of feeding on their energy. I'm drinking it in and ooh, this feels so good. So I'm actually being rejuvenated by being around other people, whether they're interacting with me or not. Just being in the crowd is helpful. Yeah, Whereas for my husband, who's an introvert, being in the crowd is actually draining for him. Mm-hmm. He finds it he has to pump himself up and get excited or get motivated, and he has to be warned in advance so he can think about being in the crowd.
Yeah, I have to totally get into state. And that's what I was saying before. I actually totally changed my train of thought. But I was saying that I'm an introvert, but what I want to change about myself is to be a little bit more outgoing. So to be able to handle those social situations a little bit easier and not feel like I'm blindsided every time there's more people than I anticipated.
Mm-hmm. And it's the simple thing, he'll come home from work, and if I have a friend over or something, he'll be like, and he'll just go up to his room, and he might come down an hour later and be like, hey, and then go back up to his room. Right? It's because he's just, in his mind, it's okay, this is a place where I know the expectations, I know kind of the dynamics, there's no new energy. For me, it's when a guest, somebody rings the doorbell, I'm oh, hello, come on in, have a tea.
I don't even answer the door when people ring my doorbell. I literally, I don't. I have done that before. I'm nobody's home. Isn't that terrible? And I don't pick up my phone sometimes when people call because I'm just not in the mood
to talk.
I have to be in the mood to talk.
I cannot imagine not being in the mood to talk.
Oh my god.
That is a concept that just doesn't even compute for me. Unless, okay, that's not true. There has been a time I didn't want to talk. When I was delivering my baby. It's don't talk to me right now! I'm having a baby! But other than that...
That's your line.
That's my line. Childbirth is the time I don't want to talk.
Because you're too busy screaming in agony, I'm assuming.
Yeah. But other than that, I can't imagine.
She's a true extrovert.
I wake up in the middle of the night and poke my husband hey, want to talk?
Oh my god, I'm happy when Aldez is asleep because then I'm oh, I get some rest. I get some space, I get to read, I get to do my stuff.
And we have a really cool dynamic because Jenna is an introvert married to engaged to an extrovert. Mm-hmm. I'm an extrovert married to an introvert. So we're always swapping stories, right? And we're kind of oh, now I get why he does what he does, because I just say, oh, well, Jenna does it this way, so it must be what he's doing. Just assume that that's the whole reason for everything. But it is a big a big difference in people, right? Because it's where are you actually getting charged up and fueled up? Is it by being alone and on your own, and that's where you get fueled up, or are you getting fueled up by being around people? And if you don't understand that about your partner or your parents or your children or whoever it is in your life, you might start thinking that something's wrong with them, or like, why aren't they cooperating, right? Rather than just knowing that that's what they need.
And there's a continuum, right? So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but I had a partner who was an extreme introvert. And it was tough. Like, I felt very stifled because we never went out and did anything. So it was like, and it was always just the two of us, and that was too much for me. So like, I understand as well, being on the other side of it, being like, oh, I don't want to just stay home all the time. Like, I want to go out and do things. But when you understand where your partner's coming from, then you can make those small adjustments. You can say, okay, I need to be around people right now, but I know you don't. So I'm going to go hang out with my friends. You stay home.
Right.
And let's just make that okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with spending a part time.
Right.
If you're getting recharged in different ways.
Exactly. And for you individually too, is to look at, so where's your comfort and then where's your area for growth, right? So I'm comfortable being around people. My area for growth is being alone. And so I've actually forced myself, when I was in my, my university days, I would force myself to actually go to a restaurant alone, go to a movie alone, spend the day by myself that was back in the day before cell phones. So I actually couldn't communicate. Now it's amazing. I get in my car and I have automatically I could call anybody I want. I have company in the car. Every time I get in the car, I have company if I wanted. Like the Bluetooth, it's awesome.
Oh my God, I don't even plug in my Bluetooth. Well, I have my Bluetooth, my headphones. I think that's illegal. I don't even plug them in sometimes because I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't keep the radio on. Like,
I need the radio on. I'm like, somebody talk to me. Like,
which sounds really depressing, but it's not because it's fun. Because I'm fun.
Drive with my radio, talking to the people. Like, it's an event driving.
Wow.
If it's quiet, I'm like, oh God, I can't stay awake. It's so exhausting.
So that's one area that you can get to know yourself. Another one is birth order. And Syra is like the resident expert in birth order.
I love this birth order stuff.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
So, firstborn children. Clearly. Tend to make really good CEOs. Because they like to be the boss. They like to be in charge. Generally in families, the firstborn child is the golden child, or the child that's, all of the wishes and hopes are put on that child, and there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectation, and often the firstborn will meet the expectation. Sometimes they don't, but often they do, and they're called often the hero, right? So everybody's relying on you to save the family.
In my family, the firstborn is Salima, and my grandfather tells a story to everyone how Salima is the only person in our family with Ma in her name, which is like mom. Salima. Farah, no. Zubin, no. Jannah, no. Salima.
That's awesome.
He says it to everyone, and she's like the mom.
The mom, yeah. So the firstborn ends up being like the caregiver, the caretaker, the person with the responsibility for the family. And, as a parent, I'm watching how I'm parenting my firstborn, and it's really, there's a lot of pressure on him. I expect him to behave a certain way. I don't tolerate a lot of crap from him. Like, the standard is high. The second one, however,
it's a free-for-all.
He gets away with everything. She's watching movies at 3 that he wasn't allowed to watch till he was 6. But, he's watching them at 6, and she's just in the room, so she ends up watching them.
What do you do?
Right? So it's like, she gets away with a lot. Like, she ate ice cream earlier. She, everything. Because first, I was a little more relaxed as a parent the second time around. And also, you're just kind of going along with your sibling. Yeah. The second child kind of looks at the situation and what the first child is doing and says, yeah, you don't look like you're having any fun at all. So second children tend to be really successful entrepreneurs, right? They're out-of-the-box thinkers. They're bringing a new flavor to the family. They're kind of challenging the status quo. Often second children will become the black sheep of the family, like the problem child, because they're saying, no,
this doesn't look like it's working, so I'm going to try something
Everyone's depressed and stressed and pressured. This does not look fun. So they do the opposite of what the family's doing.
Oh, interesting.
Often. The third child will often show up as the orphan. So the third child will often have more connections outside of the family than within the family.
How many children are we going to?
So we can go to 4.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? So she's like, because I have 4 in my family, so I want to know. Wait. So we can, you can go on and on. So, okay, We'll get to that.
So the third child.
The third child. So if you have a family, say, of 4 children, the third child will often feel like the orphan. So they'll often feel like there's not really a place for them in the family. Like, mommy's got her favorite and daddy's got his favorite. And again, we're talking about, like, 2-parent heterosexual family, which I know there's a lot of variations now with families, but we're talking about the classic, right? So the third child will feel like more connected to people outside the family than people inside the family. And feel like, yeah, I care about the family, and they'll deeply care for the family, and they'll be the kind of emotional barometer of the family. They'll know exactly what's going on with everybody, but they won't really feel like there's a place for them. They don't really fit. Then there's the baby. So if you have a family of 2, then this baby would apply to the youngest. If you have a family of 10, the baby would still apply. If you have a family of 4 or 5 or whatever, so you're the baby. The baby tends to be the one who, like, everybody kind of doesn't, like, they kind of protect, they kind of boss around. They often don't have very high expectations, because they're like, oh yeah, whatever, anything goes. And so often the baby feels like, well, nobody really cares about me, and I'm not really that important, right? And so it's a side effect of people just, like, by the time, imagine, so my first child, then there's another child where I'm like, oh yeah, you can watch the show. Then there's the 4th child. Who's like, what? There's another baby here somewhere? And, like, the eldest is probably, like, doing a lot of that work, and so the parents are just very comfortable, and so there isn't that same
and they're distracted.
They're distracted by so many other kids, right? And so the baby often feels like they're perceived as spoiled, always, because they get a lot of things that before their time, right? But they often feel like they're boss, like everybody's gets to tell them what to do, and they don't get to decide their life for themselves. So that's kind of...
So what do they make good?
Babies?
Yeah.
Babies make good entertainers. Generally. Yeah. So babies make it, and the third children are often social activists, and the 4th children, and again, if you're the baby and the 3rd or the 2nd, then you double that up on that. But the babies are often those people who are, like, entertaining the family. They're, like, clowning around. They're like, look at me, I'm so cute. And then professionally, you'll find babies and second children are generally entertainers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, of course, in your family, there's going to be some variation. Like, always. This is a very...
like, classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's going to be, like, offshoots of that. But if you think about your own family and where were you born in the row, right? Were you the first child who, like, the parents were like, oh my gosh, this is our baby. Like, what do we do? Oh, they're crying. Oh, oh my God. Oh, my... Right? Or were you the second child where they're like, oh yeah, like, we get it. You don't have to, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. Or were you the third child where they were like, is there another child around here? Like, what? Right? So because that's going to affect how you see yourself, right? That's why this stuff is interesting, is because how you're raised then affects how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And how other people treat you as a young child makes you believe things about yourself. So if you feel like, if you're the third child in a family of 3, say you're the third child, and you feel like an orphan, but you're also the baby, so you're also a bit of an entertainer. So that's now how your personality is starting to form. And the thing about a role is that once you're aware of the role, you can actually change it.
That's the key. That is so the key.
Right.
So gain some insight. Like, think about your own life. Think about where you fit in, where you feel like you fit in, and then how you want to fit in. Right? Because if you're not fitting in the way that you want to, then the adjustment starts from you, because nobody's going to do it for you. Like, if I'm the baby and I want to start feeling more important, that has to come from me. That can't come from anyone else. Because no matter how they treat me, that's still how I'm seeing myself, because that's how I've always seen myself.
Exactly.
Right?
And what happens with children is that in the first 5 years, the brain, like, there's these kind of patterns that are laid down in the brain. And then the rest of our life, just kind of keep doing that same thing over and over. We just follow those synaptic, we follow that pathway.
It's easy. And
it's easy. Natural. And it's already there. And we just...
And when things feel natural, then you think, oh, this is supposed to be this way because it feels so natural. But really, it's just,
a habit.
It's a habit.
And so when you become an adult and you start thinking, well, maybe I don't want to be the black sheep anymore. Maybe I don't want to be the problem child, the second child that's always, like, challenging the family. Maybe I want a different role.
Maybe I want to connect. Maybe I want to feel accepted. Maybe I want to feel like part of the group.
Maybe I want to be a bit of a hero and have some successes of my own that people celebrate.
Exactly.
Well, then... you can make those changes.
Totally.
Right? You don't have to be locked and trapped in by your birth order.
Yeah.
But understanding it helps you understand why you do the things that you do. Sorry, my phone just beeped. Sorry, guys. Faux pas. Once I was giving a talk, and I told everyone to turn off their phones, and then I went and sat down, And guess whose phone rang? And it was my dad. And he knew I was giving a talk. It's like, Dad, this is not the time. I was like fumbling because it's a new phone. I'm like, I don't know how to turn it off. So sorry. My apologies.
So you blamed your dad there even though it was your fault?
Because I'm the firstborn. It's never my fault. If I was the second child, it would totally be my fault. I would take that shit on. Not me. No. I'm like someone else's fault.
So I'm curious about you. So you're the firstborn.
Yeah.
What are some things that you want to do differently? Like, what are some adjustments?
So for me, so this is a good story.
Okay, tell me.
Like a painful story.
Oh.
So for me, because I was the hero, I was always expected to do everything right and to do everything that was expected of me and to always perform and to be really outstanding. And that gets exhausting. Because there's only so much you can do that's going to, like, get you accolades and get you applause. Mm-hmm. After a while, you're just like, okay, I want to just live my normal life now and be like a normal person. I don't want to be like a shining star all the time. And when that happened for me, it's almost like I fell off the pedestal. I actually wrote a blog about falling off the pedestal. Yeah. Right? And how it's like when that happened where I said, enough, I'm tired of, being the savior of everyone, the fixer for everyone, being the one who's going to, heal the family and correct the mistakes of 15 generations or whatever. People didn't like it.
Yeah.
People didn't like it, and they started getting mad at me. And
they're used to relying on you for certain things, and they feel like, oh, well, if we have a problem, Syra can fix it. I'm
the one.
Yeah.
Right? And in my family, I actually have a name, which is Baji, which means eldest sister. So everybody in my family always called me that. My aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, my cousins, my siblings, everybody called me that. So there was this kind of this inner thing that happened where I really took that on, and I took that seriously. And then I started realizing that I wasn't happy. It wasn't making me this role. It was making me popular. Maybe it was making, giving me applause, but it wasn't making me happy. And so then I read this book called The Art of Extreme Self-Care.
Oh, sounds interesting.
Yeah, and I started going to workshops and started doing all of these things. And people started calling me selfish. That's what happened.
Because you were acting slightly different than normal.
Right. And I was
caring for everyone else. You were starting
and
to
I let go of the perfectionism.
Yourself.
Like, I remember my 18th birthday party.
Yeah.
Right. It was, my mom rented this huge community center. It was like out in the boonies in Calgary. And my cousins were all decorating, like putting up balloons and stuff. And I was so anal, and I was such a driven, A-type, perfectionist, that I was having them measure how much space between each of the balloons. And when you roll the streamer, how many rolls to make it perfect.
Wow.
Anal. I was so anal. And at some point, especially after I had kids, I had to let that go, because there was no way I was going to maintain that level of perfectionism and keep any sort of sanity.
So you think that was a product of always being expected to
be perfect, right? And for me, my perfection went academics, right? That's where I excelled. Mm-hmm. And so in academics, it's there's an A, and then there's an A plus, and then there's everything else. Mm-hmm. And anything less than an A or an A plus was unacceptable to me. I remember my first B was devastation.
Wow.
Right? And so everything had to be A or A plus. Everything in my life had to be that. Mm-hmm. And it was this extreme control. And the reason I held that level of control was because I felt if I let that go, everything would fall apart. My family would fall apart. Mm-hmm. And when I did let that go, what I figured out was oh, other people stepped up.
Because they're resourceful too.
People are resourceful. Yeah. And my brother got to have his shining moment. Mm-hmm. And my sister got to shine. And, my parents got to do things in a new way. And so I didn't have to be the hero anymore. Wow. For a while, I was the scapegoat. For a while, I was the one who everybody blamed for shit going wrong.
And that's because when you shake up that cycle that we get ourselves into, it causes a disruption in everybody's life. So they have to recalibrate some way.
And they don't like it because, see, I wanted to change. I want to change in my life, but they didn't ask for change.
Yeah.
But now I'm shaking things up, and they're unhappy about that because they never asked for this change.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So now I'm claiming those parts of me that are a little bit more who can. So that part of me that actually builds relationships outside the family, mm-hmm. so building friendships and actually connecting to people outside of the family. That part of me that's an entertainer and that's funny and that's mm-hmm. charming, right? That part of me that's a little bit spoiled and likes the attention and see, my mom is a baby and I'm a firstborn. So often our dynamic growing up was that I would kind of boss her around.
Yeah.
Because I was the eldest.
Yeah.
But she was my mom.
I know, but it doesn't matter.
But she had ingrained that baby thing so deeply that she was willing to be told what to do.
Totally.
Right? And so just as adults now, we're starting to see that and laugh about it and kind of correct some of that.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that my thing was because I was the fourth child and I was also the fourth girl. There were so many girls in our house. My thing was that I didn't really know what my identity was because I was always trying to not be like everyone else. Like, and someone had already claimed the funny one and the pretty one and the smart one. So it's like, well, where the hell does that leave me? Right?
What's left?
So you have to like I felt like I had to go in between, and I didn't really want to steal anyone else's spotlight. So I didn't want to become too smart because then what would the smart one do? And I didn't want to be too pretty because then what would the pretty one do? And I didn't want to be too funny because what would the funny one do, right? Like, you feel like you have to kind of cater to those people. So I, for a long time, was just kind of floundering. Like,
just
I was
kind of invisible.
Yeah, like, I mean, I was liked. I was, like, very bubbly, but I was just my own brand, and I stayed out of everything. Like, I didn't want to be too involved, because if I was too involved, then I'd have a place, and what would my place really be? What would that look like, right? So I went away for a while, and I just kind of, like, had my own life very far away, and I didn't really include any of my family in anything that was happening. And then when I moved back here a couple of years ago, I had to kind of reclaim that identity. And it was such a process, right? Because I had to see, okay, well, where do I fit? And am I okay with being who I am, even if it's overlapping, right? Even if it overlaps with other people. Am I okay now as an adult to just claim those parts of myself that I've maybe pushed down and be okay with it, right? And you have to give yourself permission.
And it's so tough in a family, right? Where somebody's already claimed that thing. Like, somebody's smart and only one person can be smart in the whole family. Like, really? We do that. We do that to each other, and it's so dangerous. And it's parents, too, that say, oh, you look at your sister, she's so fill in the blank.
She's this one.
Yeah, look at your brother, he's so athletic. For us, it was my brother was athletic, my sister was funny, and I was smart. That was the breakdown, right? And it's like, but my sister's pretty athletic, and she's smart, and my brother's really smart, but it's like nobody said that to us, and so we didn't actually internalize any of that.
Because it's easier for us to compartmentalize people. Like, we can't really... Otherwise, how would I define you if you were, like, just you?
If you were just, like, a person with, like, all kinds of qualities.
But also we do that to ourselves, too, right? Because there was... Nobody in my family was saying, you're not allowed to be too smart. Like, nobody was saying that. But I took it upon myself to be like, oh, I don't want to make this person feel bad. Or I don't want to, be in competition with this person. That was me, right? And we do that to ourselves. So when you realize what box you've been putting yourself in, whether it's from what other people have told you or what you've seen, how you've perceived the situation, now is the time to change that. Now is the time to say, all right, well, this is a stupid box. I don't like it anymore. And I'm breaking my way free.
And you'll find that if you don't kind of become conscious about this and whether it's introversion, extroversion, whether it's birth order, that you'll see these patterns playing out in other places in your life. So you'll see it playing out at work, where there's this really like annoying boss that reminds you of your big sister. Or, there's this colleague of yours that's like so always in your face and wanting to talk, and you're kind of an extrovert. So if you can kind of understand where you're coming from, then coping with these other situations in your life becomes much, much easier.
That's why I've always hated having like a normal job, because I cannot stand having a boss. Like, when someone tells me what to do, I'm like
I am not the baby here! I am not the baby of you! I am the big sister here, damn it! I'm the boss!
And you and I have an interesting dynamic because you're an eldest sister and I'm a youngest sister. And so we have to be conscious, I think, of not putting each other in those boxes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because with us, I find is like, I actually look to you as like an equal. Oh. Right? So, and I'm like listening for your advice. I'm trying to like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Right? And I think part of that for me is because I've been letting go of that big sister thing. Like, I like it, but I also don't need it anymore. And I don't need to always have the answers or always need to be the boss. Yeah. Sometimes I need to be the boss. Kind of still need to be the boss. Oh my gosh. Don't take that away from me.
She's seeing it in action right now. She's struggling.
I'm struggling. Oh, I need to... But it's around control. And feeling like if I don't have control, then everything will be shattered, right?
And I feel like if I do have control, what the hell am I going to do with it?
Like, too much.
Yeah. But that's changeable.
Totally. We're working on it right now, as you can see, as we speak.
And if this is striking any chords with you, let us know. Like, start up a conversation. We'd love to talk. If you have any further episode ideas, topic ideas, we're open. We'll talk about anything.
Anything. Clearly. So we also do a Facebook Live.
Yes. We've had 2 this week.
Yeah.
Or maybe a few weeks ago. I don't know when we're going to air this.
Oh, we don't know. Anyway. We've had 2 at some point in our... But yeah, so check us out on Facebook. So I'm Dr. Syra. I have a Facebook page, and
Jenna Amarsi, couples therapist and relationship coach.
so check out our Facebook pages and like our pages and check out our websites and
our
just
YouTube
connect.
channel,
Yeah, connect with us. We'd
subscribe.
love to hear from our viewers. I know sometimes when you're watching a YouTube video, you'd be like, oh yeah, that was great. And then you just kind of, but we actually want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We want to know
Because
who
we're
our
here
viewers
for
are.
you.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about all that stuff that maybe you don't know who to talk to about that stuff, right? Maybe it's kind of awkward to go to a counselor or to tell your best friend something weird that's going on with you. We'll talk about it.
We'll totally talk about it.
Yeah, you're not weird. You're normal.
You're not weird. You're totally normal. So send us your questions and we will talk about it.
Yes. And we will see you next week.
On
Thank you
Today's
so much
Your
for
Day.
watching.
Bye.
Bye.